And you also have to mute your camera. You have nothing to show us. If you have something to show us, actually, we are not interested in what you have to show us. We don't need your face. We don't want to look at your face. We don't want to look at the fan that is in your room. Emmanuel Dia. Iman. Francis Obeng. Sylvester Ode. Even myself, the presenter. I am not showing you any video, live video of my office. And some people are showing us their chest. Is it because you have big body?
Hey,
Emmanuel Dia.
Emmanuel, off your camera.
Sylvester Odoy. Ode.
Hey, I'm finding
Okay.
I'm finding it difficult of the
Your
video.
and your distance is also
sure.
on. Your microphone is on. Please let it go off, okay? Emmanuel Dia is still having his video on. Let me tell you the benefit of putting your video on. Off, sorry. It improves the connectivity between my end and yours. So if you have all of this video thing always on and you get interference in the traffic, the connection between my side and your side, that is your making. Gloria Gako. Gloria, you are showing us your fun. We are not interested. Okay, so let's try to do something for today. We have already introduced the topic, and you remember. And the topic is absorption costing part 1, allocation and apportionment of production overheads. I'm trying to get certain things fixed. That's why I'm not flowing with what I am actually saying. So still give me some time. Okay, now I have shared my screen. So you should be, in a few moments time, you should be able to see my shared screen. Are you seeing my shared screen?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
We can see.
So we began the lecture last week from chapter 7.
It's too small. You can't see.
It is too small because your device is small. It's not because what I'm doing here is small. I have a large projection here. But if you are viewing what I'm doing from a very small screen, then the writings are smaller because your screen is making them smaller. All right. So you can just adjust your screen so that if you can flip your phone to get, the wider view, that can help.
I'm using a laptop.
You're using a laptop,
Yeah.
and for only you, yours is too small.
Yeah.
I don't know how big you want it to be, but there's a laptop here that I have logged in as a student, and I'm seeing everything very perfectly. How come yours is only smaller? Who is getting a good view? I mean, just mention your name to us. Whose view is okay? Who is using a laptop and he has a good view?
Yeah, Maxwell. I'm having a
Maxwell,
good view.
yeah. So the problem is coming from your side. You can make someone help you. Maybe you have clicked on something that is compromising the view, because everything here I have.
Maximize it. So tell her to maximize it.
Maximize it, madam. They are telling you, because I have a screen here which is in the student view mode, and it is as bigger as what I'm writing. It's very clear. Okay. So chapter 7 is on
Or she
allocation.
can rotate it.
It's
Oh, if
better
it's
now.
it's better now. Thank you very much. Chapter 7 talks about allocation and apportionment of production overheads. We began this lecture last week, and basically what we said was, in addition to certain costs that we are clear about the fact that they are inventorial costs, they are product costs, because we can directly and fully trace them to the product or service or anything that we are costing, cost object. There are some other costs which, either because they relate to more than one cost object and therefore cannot be fully and directly traced to the cost object, such costs are not direct. I'll be forced to take some people out of the class
Yeah, why?
because they don't follow the ethics of the class. I told those people that Judith Nati, Maxwell Edu, Ezekiel Opoku, when you log on, just just put off your microphone and your camera so that all the noise that is at your side, you don't disturb us with it. And you also have to get your camera off before you show us certain things that are unseeable. And they are not listening to just this simple instruction. So what do? I have to just sack them from the class, right?
Say, forgive them.
No, their sins are many. Judith, Judith, I'm sure this lady is not in class. Judith, Judith Nate.
Please, is there no means that you can put their microphones off?
No, I can't. I don't have that control. Maybe I'll check the settings later. For now, since I'm already in presentation mode, yeah, I don't want to go back and forth.
I said my
Okay, so
microphone is off.
you're what? Okay, that's okay. So put it off always, right? Put it off always so that you don't disturb the class. So we're saying that there are some costs that are not direct. And therefore, ordinarily, we do not have a direct and a sure way of making them part of the cost of the product. And all of these costs that are not direct costs are collectively referred to as overheads. You can call them indirect costs, but mostly in textbooks and in so many places you will hear overheads, overheads, overheads. That's what it means. And one characteristic of overhead is that they are mostly fixed in relation to the activity level, let's say units of production. They are mostly fixed. So what we try to do, we used last week to try to have a sense of how we can calculate cost per unit for direct material. That one is straightforward because it's a direct cost. We can always identify the quantity and therefore the cost of wood that goes into one table. We can always identify and calculate the cost of material that goes into one bottle of Sobolo. And we're trying to use Abigail's case as an example in class. And we did similar calculations and logical reasoning around labor, direct labor in this case, because it's also a direct cost. Those calculations and the sense behind them that they are they go into the cost of the product has no argument against them. It's straightforward. But there are other costs. They are not directly traceable, directly and fully traceable to the cost object, either a product we are doing or a service or a department. But we incur them because we are still doing this, manufacturing this product or doing this service, which we are saying we cannot directly and fully trace. Even though they are not directly attributable to the product, they are incurred ultimately because we are doing this business, we are manufacturing these products, we are rendering these services. If we were not doing the product or rendering the services, we wouldn't have in any way incurred that cost. So in the philosophy of absorption costing, they are saying that at least that's mostly what you will see to be the case when it comes to this topic. At least production overheads, just because even though they are not directly traceable to the product, just because they are so close to the product, we have to make those indirect costs, those overheads, also part of the product. And this is in line with accounting standards number 2, International Accounting Standard number 2, IAS 2. You did something small accounting. You did level 100, level 100 first semester, second semester accounting, right? And I'm sure you heard something about inventory, IAS 2. The part of the standard that we are interested in here is that the costing of an inventory, the cost that we give to an item of inventory, which is one product in this case, should be the direct costs plus any other cost which is so close to the product so that we get a complete cost of the product. So you see the IAS2 will do like the direct cost of the product plus any other cost that is incurred to bring the product into a sellable state and to a sellable point. So if you go and buy, let's say, a computer server to be installed at your premises, the cost of the server will be the cost that you pay to the manufacturer or the supplier, which is clear. Everybody is okay with that, which is the direct cost. IS2 says that other incidental costs like the cost of setting up the server, installation, testing, all those things should be capitalized, should be added back to the cost of the server. And that is in line with what we are discussing. From absorption costing philosophy. The direct costs are there, we are okay with that. But production overheads, and I gave an example in class the other time that at the production level or at the factory, we may have someone who supervises the production of the products. If you are producing like 3 products, the supervision goes for all of the three products. So we don't have any direct way of saying all of the supervisory cost is for this particular product. If we were doing only one product, for example, then we know that the supervision cost is just for this one product, so all of the cost goes to that product. But if you are doing like 3, 4, and in any typical organization, medium-sized, big-sized organizations, if you take Coca-Cola, for example, you just think about the number of product lines. Look at Guinness Ghana. Even look at University of Cape Coast as a service provider. Look at the various programs we run. Right. So that's typically what the situation is. And this supervisor will be doing supervision for all of the things happening at the factory. So it becomes a cost that is not directly and fully traceable to any of the products or services, and therefore indirect. And such a cost, just because it's happening at the factory level, it's just so close to the product that in the philosophy of absorption costing, we have to add such costs to the cost of the product. But how do we add them? This is not a straightforward way. So we are now coming to learn about the basis and the various ways that the procedures we can employ to get these indirect costs into the product as if they are also direct costs. Okay. So we are going to go through what is, so let me just go to the chapter, right? So all the background talk is in the text you can read later. I may read directly some sections that I think is important that I draw your attention to. Okay, so let me say this. Normally, what we do is we first create what is called cost centers. And the cost centers creation, sometimes the way the organization is organized by itself has already created cost centers. If you go to some manufacturing setups, you will realize that the production process is already segregated into the various logical sections. For example, cutting, machining, assembling. Most production flows from a point to the end. So at this point, maybe we do washing, then it goes to bottling, and then it goes to sealing, and then it goes to labeling, it goes to boxing, and it goes to packing. So you will have the production, the factory set up in this fashion. Each section of such a setup generates its own cost. So normally the idea is to create cost centers around these activities, production activities. So we might have cutting department, for example. We might have assembly department, for example. We might have maybe finishing department, labeling and finishing department. They naturally create themselves into cost centers. And then we pull all the costs they generate to themselves, because those departments or those cost centers generate those costs exclusively to themselves. All right. So the process of just tracing a cost to a cost center, just because this cost belongs exclusively to this cost center, that process is called allocation, overhead allocation. But we need to be a little bit careful. This is the British terminology for the process, allocation. The Americans don't see allocation the same way. So if you're reading an American text, the Americans, when they say allocation, they are referring to absorption. Sorry, they are referring to apportionment, and we'll come to apportionment very soon. But I don't need to really complicate it for you. Everything we are learning, in fact, the style of our costing and everything we do here is in line with the British one. So let's go ahead and learn it the way we do it. So allocation, cost center A. cost center B. So we have cost centers. An example could be cutting. So these are all production cost centers. Production cost centers. Cutting department. Apart from cutting department, we might have assembly department. We might even have labeling and finishing department. And this one depends on how the organization is set up. Then we are saying that if a cost is generated only in cutting department, and there are some costs that will be very specific to cutting, no such cost can be incurred in assembly or labeling and finishing. So all the costs that belongs exclusively to cutting, we take it and bring it to cutting. And the process of doing that is what we call allocation. 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 But you realize that there will be some costs that are general to the departments. There will be some activities that benefit cutting department, assembling or assembly department, and labeling and finishing department. It's general to them. And for such a course, we cannot allocate because we cannot know which one that it exclusively belongs. It belongs to all of them. Such a course, we have to apportion. So apportionment is the process of sharing a general cost or a common cost to the departments that are benefiting from the activities that are generating those costs using fair basis. Using fair basis so that you do not give unduly an amount of cost to an undeserving department and vice versa. And we'll learn about some of the basis. Before we even look at apportionment, there is one thing we have to also note. In addition to the production cost centers, there are sometimes other departments in the factory that are not directly involved in the physical production, like cutting, assembling, bottling, labeling. They are not directly into this physical production activities, but they exist in the factory anyway, and they exist there to provide services to the production department. And we usually refer to those other cost centers which provide services to the production cost centers as service cost centers. Service cost centers. Service in this case simply means they provide service to the production cost centers. So when we are doing the allocation, we will look at the cost. If it goes exclusively to cutting, we give it to cutting. The one that goes exclusively to assembly, we give it to assembly. The one that goes exclusively to service department A, we give it to service department B. The one that goes exclusively to service department B and C and D and so on, we give it to them. And that finishes the allocation process. Then all of those ones that cut across the production cost centers, we share them. When we are sharing, we say we are apportioning. But you can take your dictionary and look at the dictionary definition for apportionment. You will see share as probably a synonym. We are sharing. We're going to share the cost to the cost centers that benefit from that cost, because that cost does not pertain exclusively to only one. And when we are sharing, we have to use appropriate, fair basis of sharing, fair basis of apportionment. Fair basis of apportionment. Okay, so now let's see some of them. Okay, so apportionment of general production overheads. General because they are common to multiple cost centers. They don't pertain exclusively to just any one particular cost center. And that's the reason why we call them general. Let's read on some of the basis of apportionment. We have them in the table. I'm just doing a repetition of what we did last week. So if you take something like rent, rate, repair, depreciation of factory buildings, they are mostly general. For example, if you take rent of the whole factory premises, and it's the same factory premises that we have the cutting department, we have the assembly department, we have the finishing department. So such a rent, the amount we pay to the landlord, is general, is common to the three departments. In fact, to all the departments. There could be other service departments. So such a cost, we cannot give it to only one department. And we cannot give it to just only two. What is the basis? Unless we have a basis which says that that cost is generated by only two. And in this particular case, rent will be a cost that is benefiting all. And in that case, a cost that is generated by the activities of all of the departments, which we have to share to them. We are sharing, we say we are apportioning, so which we have to apportion to them. And you have to, as a matter of practice, come up with a fair basis of sharing, right? We have to, if we have, let's say, some amount of money that we have gone to do some consulting job, we have gotten that money from some consulting assignment that we have carried out. So as a whole class, we constitute a consulting firm. On what basis should we share the money that will be fair? Is it by height? Is it by body size, bigness? And of course, all of these things are candidate basis. But the question is it the fairest way to share it based on the circumstances? Should it be by how much hours each person spent on the consulting work? But the bottom line is you have to, as much as possible, come up with the realistic, the most fairest basis so that the apportionment exercise will not be distorted. Remember, you are apportioning costs. So you are saying you take this cost, you this department take this cost. If you make a mistake to give so much cost to a center which doesn't deserve that, and pricing is based on all this costing. When we finish the costing and we know the cost of the product, then we can say, okay, we expect 20%. So if your costing from the beginning is wrong, you have to also remember that your pricing will be wrong. And again, if you are not the only person in the industry, you can go scot-free with those mistakes if you are a monopoly. But if you are in a competitive environment, and if even the environment is highly competitive, the little mistake you do, you can be at the bottom of the competition. So these things we are discussing is very, very, very important for businesses. And you will graduate to go and work in businesses. So don't just listen and see it as business as usual. Oh, it's one of the things that we have to pass through to get our certificates. Certification, which is an evidence of knowledge. So when you finish, you should be practically demonstrate. You should be able to practically demonstrate this knowledge whether you are assigned to any business in this particular area. Work out and bring changes. Good. So for rent and similar expenditure, which is general, mostly floor area is used as the basis of sharing the cost among the cost centers that are benefiting from such a cost. The idea is that if you take something like rent, rent has to do with the premises itself. If you occupy the largest portion of the premises, then you are using more of the rent than any other department. So if you share it according to floor area, then the sharing will be fair. That's the idea. Repairs and depreciation of factory buildings. Unless we have a basis which is more accurate than floor area, in most cases we resort to floor area. The idea can also be that repair of factory buildings, depreciation of factory buildings, such costs, the more, let's say, cutting department, the more the size of maybe the structure for the cutting department. Let's say there's a building for cutting department. The more, I mean, the bigger that structure, the more that repairs on it will be more. So that's the idea. It might not be exactly true, but in fact, in this case, that's maybe the closest truth. So if you have a bigger factory building, or if your factory is occupying a bigger space, that means your structure is big. Then we can use floor area as the basis of sharing depreciation of factory building, repairs on factory building. That's the logic, very similar to rent and rates. Depreciation of equipment, not buildings, equipment, and machine. Depreciation of equipment and machine. And also insurance of equipment and machine. Most of the time, the basis we use, and you also have to understand why this basis may be appropriate. Costs of the equipment or the machine, or book value if the cost is not there. If you don't have the cost information, book value of the equipment or machine. The idea is that depreciation is normally based on cost. Cost adjusted with maybe scrap value and other things. So if the cost is huge, depreciation will be huge. So it makes sense for you to say use cost as the basis to share such an expenditure. Insurance of equipment and machinery. That may be book value. It may be cost as well. I mean, book value and cost are very similar. The basic thing is that it is based on value. The insurance company will charge you the premium based on the value of the item. So if your car is latest Mercedes, very expensive, and you want to insure it, let's say comprehensive insurance, and another person is using Toyota Corolla. So G-Wagon latest, Toyota Corolla latest. The insurance companies will not charge, they are all latest, but they will not charge the same premium. They will not ask you to pay the same premium. The premium is determined by the value of the car. So if you have such a cost, insurance cost, insurance, machinery or vehicle insurance costs, and such a cost is a cost that goes for all of the departments, the proper basis to share them is to use the value of the equipment, because that is how the premiums are charged, and that becomes fair. My stress is on you assessing the fairness of the basis so that you don't get the distributions wrong. You don't give so much cost to a department that doesn't deserve it, or so low cost to a department that deserves to be given more. Canteen, welfare, first aid, number of employees or labor hours worked in each department. So these are the candidate basis of apportionment. Electric power, basically electricity, heating, cooling, and lighting, all has to do with power. Horsepower of machine, or machine hours or floor area occupied. So it's arranged in order of fairness. Horsepower, if it is there, is the most realistic basis. If that is not there, we have machine hours. The assumption is that the more machine is powered on, the more it generates electric, cost, heating cost, cooling cost, whatever. If this is also not there, we can use floor area. So you have to always look at how fair the basis is. In other words, we don't have this thing cast in stone, hard and fast, that it always has to be this. Coming from the SHS background, sometimes you will be told that, oh, this is the one you have to use. No, it is a very judgmental thing based on what is fair in a particular circumstances. Okay. So that is the basis. We'll take an exercise to illustrate it. So once we have all the departments. So let's say, let me repeat what we're trying to do. Production departments. And let's say we have A, B, C. Then we always have some service department. Service department. So let's say service department S1, S2. Service department 1, service department 2. After the allocation level, so allocation we all now understand. We just take the cost that belongs exclusively to you. We give it to you. So when we finish the allocation exercise, now there is one argument. In fact, let me say this. The allocation in this way, taking a cost that belongs to each of the cost centers and giving it to them, this level of allocation is referred to as primary allocation. Primary allocation because there is secondary allocation. The argument is this: these service departments are not actually into production of the products or rendering of the services. So all the costs they generate through the service they render to the production department, they generate those costs for the production department. So after this level of allocation, and okay, so after this allocation, we will do apportionment.
Please, hand has been lifted.
Hello?
Someone has raised the hand. I think you've not seen it.
Okay, please mention your name and talk. The one who has raised his hand. Juan, answer. Hello, Juan, we are listening. Juan. Okay, maybe she clicked on it in error. Okay, so let me take it again. So after allocation,
Some of them are just exploring the
after allocation, please mute your mic. After allocation, all right, we do, let me take that portion again, it's very important. After allocation, which is very direct, take what belongs to which department and give it to that department, because that is exclusively for that department. Then we come and do apportionment. I'm taking that again because I I did a wrong explanation over there. We do apportionment. Apportionment is sharing the cost that belongs to multiple departments. Apportionment or distribution. That's another word you can also find for apportionment, distribution. So the distribution, the first one will be the general overheads. General overheads. And that's the one we were discussing. Rent and rates, depreciation of buildings, depreciation of machinery, equipment, canteen costs, and we have looked at the basis. After this level of apportionment, which is apportionment of general overheads, you will now come to have something like, let's say, values like this for the apportionment of general overheads. So we might have this total and this total. But we are saying that when we finish with this level of apportionment or distribution, another argument is that these service departments, any of these total costs they have generated, they generated them in service to the production department. And we have to redistribute the service cost centers overhead cost to the production department. Redistribute, reapportion. So this is a second level of apportionment. So the first level of apportionment, which is apportionment of general overheads, is called primary apportionment or primary distribution. And the second one, which is the apportionment of service cost centers overheads to the production department, is referred to as secondary apportionment or secondary distribution. And every sharing should be done on a fair basis. This is straightforward, no question about that. So when we come to the sharing of the service cost centers overhead costs to the production department, we also have to determine the most appropriate basis. So if the service department is like canteen, because the factory workers, they will eat, and the canteen cost will have that allocated cost. All the costs, in association with eating, belongs to canteen department, plus any apportioned overhead costs. So we have this total. We have to share it to the production department. One of the best bases to share such a cost is the number of eaters. Let me put it that way. The number of eaters in the department. The more eaters we have in the department, the more they will generate service. Canteen department costs. So that's the logic. So we might decide to use the number of employees. Everybody there will eat, number of employees, as a basis to share the canteen department, which is a service department cost. If you have maintenance, those who check the machines in production department A, department B, department C, they service all of them. And any of the activities they do generate costs. So you will have a cost that will be gathered, this cost. Under the maintenance service department. And we need to share that cost to the production department. We can think of many possible bases. One of them could be maybe service hours. The number of hours it stays with production A, production B, production department A, B, C. We'll have the total. Then we share the cost on the basis of the fraction coming from each of the departments. That would be fair, because the idea is the more hours they spend in each of the departments, the more work they are doing there and the more costs are generated. That's fair. There could be some other basis. In any circumstances, you have to look at whether the basis is actually fair. So that is secondary distribution. So let's try to take this simple example. It is in your textbook, page, okay, it's page 117, if you're using the new text. You can open your text and follow up. Lisbeth Limited has 2 production departments, assembly and finishing, and 2 service departments, maintenance and canteen. The following are budgeted costs for the next period. Indirect material costs, 20,000 Ghana cedis, rent 15,000, power 10,000, machine depreciation 5,000, indirect labor 16,520, direct labor 125,000. The following information shows the details pertaining to the 4 departments. Floor area in square meters occupied by each of the departments, both production and service. Assembly 1,000, finishing 2,000, maintenance 5,000, canteen maintenance 500, canteen 500, giving us a total floor area in square meters of 4,000. Kilowatt hours consumed 2,750, 4,500, 1,975, 775, respectively for assembly, finishing, maintenance, canteen, a total of 10,000. Machine value 45,000, 35,000, 11,000, 9,000, respectively for assembly, finishing, maintenance, canteen. Staff 20, 30, 10, 2, respectively for assembly, finishing, maintenance, canteen. Direct labor costs. Direct labor cost 3,175, 3,800. We have none for maintenance, none for canteen. A total of 6,975. Indirect material budget 7,000, 8,000, 3,000, 2,000. A total of 20,000. Indirect labor budget 1,600, 2,220, 11,200, 1,500, a total of 16,520. Does any one of you have a question? If you don't have a question and you have just joined, please mute your microphone. And this is the requirement. Complete the overhead analysis sheet. In fact, that's that is how it is done. All the processes I have talked about, allocation, primary apportionment, secondary apportionment, they are all steps in the analysis of overheads. And you can do it beautifully by using a template like this one. Overhead analysis sheet. Overhead, the type of overhead, basis of apportionment, the amount that goes for each of the departments and total. Normally, this is how we do it. That's the template, which we call overhead analysis sheet. So the question is actually say you should prepare an overhead analysis sheet showing us how you will deal with a situation. Allocation, primary apportionment, secondary apportionment. Also make us know the basis you are choosing for any of the sharing. Right? So let's run through it. We don't want to waste so much time. Let's run through it quickly. Reduce this. Okay, so if you look at the solution, if we take all the indirect costs, indirect material, when you go back to the question, you will see that some of them are just allocation. These are the costs, the costs. Indirect material of a total of 20,000. If you come to the details here, you will have indirect material budget, which is giving you this total. This total of 20,000. The total of 20,000. That is the indirect material cost. That was given to us in the first table, the total. And this is how it splits out. They have already shown the allocation. 7,000, 8,000, 3,000, 2,000. Because we can always trace the indirect materials to any of the departments or the cost centers. So cost center, what are the cost centers in this question? Yes, the assembly cost center. We can know the specific indirect material and the cost in that center. So that is allocation. That will not be cutting across unless we have some other indirect material that, more than one department is sharing. In that case, we will not allocate. We have to apportion. So if you look at the question, it gave the totals, and then it came to show the details for you to know whether it is a common cost or it is an allocated cost. 20,000 in total, indirect material cost. And this is the indirect material cost showing in detail under each of the departments. And the fact that it sums up to 20,000 tells you this is allocation, 7832. Then when we go to indirect labor cost, that one was 16,250. That one is also allocated. Indirect labor, 16,520. In the details schedule, we have it allocated as 1,600, 2,220, 11,200, 1,500, also allocated. Then when we come to rent, let's go and see. We don't have rent allocated. We can only have a basis that we can use to share rent. Floor area is here, and among all the candidate bases, floor area may be the most fairest. Floor area, we are sharing rent. Kilowatt hours consumed will not be a good basis to share rent, cost of rent. Machine value will not be a good basis. Number of staff will not be a good basis. All right. And you also understand that direct labor cost is not an overhead. Overhead is for only indirect. So right from the beginning, this one doesn't come in. This doesn't come in when we are doing the overhead analysis. The direct labor cost doesn't come in. So if this is where if you don't really understand exactly what we are doing, you might be allocating and apportioning and even add this one. Forgetting that direct cost is not an indirect cost and therefore not overhead. So now we have the cost that we have seen to be allocated. Indirect material, indirect labor. The rest of the costs like rent, power, chain depreciation are not allocated. It means we cannot directly and fully trace them to the cost centers. It means those costs are borne by the cost centers or across several cost centers. So now we itemize those ones and come and look for an appropriate basis. And for exam purposes, you'll be given additional information that gives you a sense of the possible basis you can use. If the question is lacking information in that regard, then you can suggest any basis based on the information in the question to use. So if you take rent, let's go back to the solution. So allocated. So now overhead The type of overhead, indirect material. Basis of apportionment. Forget about the word apportionment here. It is allocation. Allocation. Or you can say basis of
Yeah, please, your
sharing.
line is breaking.
My voice is breaking, right? My voice will break
Yes.
for
Yeah.
my voice will break for two reasons. One, in fact, basically one reason, connectivity. So it is
Promised
the
me to prepare me a pancake.
Mine is okay.
so the point is connectivity. Sometimes check if you are using MTN internet that has been proven to be bad. So maybe yes, MTN internet mostly is bad. Vodafone internet is relatively better. Yeah. And
UCC Wi-Fi is also better.
UCC Wi-Fi, I think it depends on the location. So you have to know of these things, and next time you position yourself well. It is not coming from my side. I am on a very strong internet, and I'm not breaking my speech. I'm flowing. So that thing you're experiencing is because your internet to connect or to receive the signal, and this is a video signal, so it needs a strong internet. If your internet is weak, you will get that breakages. But
I guess mine is also strong.
yeah, yours is strong. But don't worry, I am recording the lecture. Pray the recording doesn't go bad, so I can have it in video and upload it to you, and then later you can
Okay,
watch
okay.
the lecture.
Martin,
Like and share.
Okay, so let's continue. So you see that we have the overhead and the basis, we are sharing it. The first one, indirect material. From the second schedule, we understand is allocation. So 7, 8, we are just reproducing the information in the table. This one, you are not doing anything here. You only need to understand what you are doing. Then rent. Rent is a common cost. It's a general cost, which needs to be shared. So rent is being apportioned. Basis of apportionment is floor area occupied in square meters. So this is common fraction. The total, let's go back to it. The total floor area across all the departments was 4,000. So total floor area is equal to 4,000 square meters. Square meters, yes. 4,000. And the cost, the total cost of rent, total rent costs is, let's go back to the question, is 15,000. That's the cost we are sharing, 15,000 Ghana cedis. 15,000 Ghana cedis. We are sharing this cost on the basis of this 15,000 total, on the basis of floor area, total of which is 4,000. So we can calculate cost per square area so that your cost as a department is this cost per square area times the square area you are occupying. So cost, rent cost per square area can be calculated as 15,000 is the cost per square area 4,000. 15,000 over 4,000 gives us what?
3.75.
3.75. Good boy. Oh, you are a man. Good man. Good young man.
Good big
So
young boy.
3.75 cities for every square meter. That's the meaning. 3.75 cities per square meter. So for every square meter that you occupy as a department, you will be charged 3 cities 75 pesos. So the more square area you occupy, the more cost you will get. That's the meaning, and this is basic meaning. This shouldn't be a problem for us, please. So we go back to the question and see what is there. We have the cost, rent cost per square area occupied as 3 cities 50 pesos. So when we come and look at the square area occupied by assembly, it's 1,000. And every 1 square area is charged 3 cities 75 pesos. So the total rent, the share of the rent cost that this guy assembly needs to get is 1,000 square area is occupying times 3 cities 75 pesos. Is that understood? Is that clear?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Yes,
Good.
sir. Yes, sir.
So you will see that we have 3.75 times 1,000. That's the meaning. And we have 3,750 as the portion of the 15,000 rent cost that should be given to assembly. We do it in the same fashion for the rest. Rent cost per unit of square area. Rent cost per square area is 3 cities 50 pesos. 75 pesos, sorry. Area occupied by finishing is 8,000. So the total cost
Sir,
of rent, yes.
sir, please, can you you see the total floor area? Can you divide the various floor, like the various areas occupied by the total floor area, and then multiply it by the cost, the total cost?
Yes, you can do it that way. It's the same as what we are doing. The only
Okay.
thing is that you will have to do multiple calculation.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so let me show what he's saying. In fact, that is how most people will look at it from. He's saying that we should do it
Yeah.
individually. So when we do assembly, that department was assembly, right? If we take assembly, let me check whether it's really assembly. Yes, it's assembly. If you take assembly, then assembly's ratio of area occupied. Assembly is occupying 1,000. 1,000 out of the total 4,000. Multiplied by the cost we are sharing, 15,000. It will give you the same thing as we calculated. And the way I calculated it and show you is straightforward and very simple to understand. But if this is what makes sense to you, why not? It will generate the same figures. So you can check 1,000 divided, this will give us 1/4. 1/4 is 0.25, right?
I prefer this.
You prefer this? So choose what you prefer. 0.25 times 15,000, it should give you the same figure calculated as 3.75 times 1,000. So prefer what you want to prefer. Are you okay? I hope you're okay.
No, I'm
Yeah, okay.
no.
You are not okay.
Yes,
Please,
sir.
when
I think
you
I'm
are
lost.
speaking, you are lost.
Yes, please.
Where are you so that we can find
Don't
you?
worry, you'll be found.
Where is your current location? What do you see around you so we can use that as a guide to find you? In other
Yeah, I'm
words,
at the solution.
okay, I
Overhead
understand.
analysis sheet.
The overhead analysis sheet. Do you understand the allocation 7,000, 8,000, 3,000, 2,000?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
I understand the square meter.
You understand what?
Square meters for rent.
The rent, do you understand?
Understand rent. But the rent, yeah.
Please, I can't get you well. Speak well. What about the rent don't you understand?
I understand the rent. As for the rent, I get it.
And we are
But the machine depreciation that was I was lost.
you are not lost. We have not even talked about machine depreciation. We are
Ah,
still talking,
can do
we are still
machine.
talking about- So it means you are not paying attention. You leave the machine and go and do something.
He's not paying
Yes,
attention.
sir, my
What we have not even talked about minus 20. Sure.
He's a bad student.
What's your name?
20 pages. 20 pages. You write 20 pages
You don't
apology
take it. I'll
letter.
make you write. I'll make you rewrite my book.
That's good, sir.
When you, okay.
Okay, sir.
Okay, so everybody, you have to pay attention. We don't have time. We have to hurry up and close so you can go and do something. Yes, please.
So does it mean
If you
at
have a
the
question,
end
we are
of
listening. Go ahead.
does it mean at the end of everything, what you've calculated for should sum up to the rent in the question, that like the total amount that was given in the question?
We cannot share more than we have. We have 15,000 to share. This 15,000. So you are sharing this among assembly, finishing, maintenance, canteen. When you share and you sum the individual amount, it shouldn't be more than, it shouldn't be less than. You understand? So that's what it
Okay.
is. That's your question. And we were just, I mean, some people were bringing in other dimensions to how we have to share it. The approach I showed you is to calculate the apportionment rate, which is one figure. It will always stand the same, 3.75. And you do that by looking at the total cost. You do that with the totals. So total cost, total rent cost divided by the total basis of sharing the rent cost. Total square area. That will give you the rent cost apportionment rate, which will be a constant figure, which you multiply by the quantum of square meters that each one is having. Another approach. So what we did when we did is we had 15,000 divided by 4,000, giving us 3.75 Ghana cedis per every square meter. So it means that every square meter that individually as a cost center you have for yourself, you are going to be charged with a rent cost of 3 cedis 50 pesos. And it's the same thing. Another person is looking at it from the more elementary way. The more elementary way is that the total of our square area is 4,000. Out of this 4,000, I have 1,000. So my 1,000 out of the 4,000 multiplied by the cost we are sharing, it will give you the same thing as we calculated through the first one. And I'm saying just go by what is flexible for you. Okay, so let's make progress. So I'm just using the example I did. So 3.75 is constant multiplied by the department's own square area. Finishing is 2,000, giving us 7,500. As finishing department share of the rent cost of 15,000. Maintenance has 3,000 square meters times 3 cedis 75 pesos, giving us 1,875 as maintenance department's share of the total rent cost. Same thing happens for canteen. So this is how we apportion the rent cost. Rent cost is a general cost. It's a common cost to all the departments. And the basis, appropriate basis is area occupied in square meters. And I've showed you the workings. So if you go beneath the text, you see working one, W1 into bracket W1 means working one. So working one, rent is apportioned to all departments based on floor area occupied. Total rent is equal to this. Total area occupied is also 4,000. Then rent charge per square meter, 15,000 by 4,000, 375 per square. You can also use the alternative approach. If we come to the cost of power, if you go back to the question, now we have done rent. Now we have power cost. Power cost is 10,000. Then you think of among the candidates' basis of apportionment power cost, which one is the most appropriate? Which one is the most fairest? And the information on the candidate basis of apportionment are given. Floor area is there. You assess, is it the most fairest? Kilowatt hours consumed. I think that the cost is power, right? Power. Kilowatt hours
Yeah,
consumed. Machine value. Staff number. Among these possible basis of apportionment, which is the most realistic, which is the most fairest?
kilowatt hours consumed.
Exactly. Kilowatt hours consumed. And it is a total of 10,000. So you can do it my way. 10,000 is the total basis. And the cost, the total
Please,
cost
I'm not
is,
hearing you.
please, madam, find a good internet. You're not hearing me because of your internet. Or you can relocate. That is never a problem
Just come
coming
and
from.
find me. Come and find me, okay?
Find anybody who has, you can even share devices. If your internet is bad or your location is producing that problem, you can relocate. You can find someone, share the device with, just for this particular time. The lecture is being recorded. If it doesn't go bad and I put it on the channel, on the YouTube channel, you can look at it again. But for now, what you are experiencing is not coming from me. There's nothing I can do about it. It's just because of your internet. Those who have good internet, they don't have that problem.
Please, just tell her to come and sit beside me.
Okay, someone is just offering you, giving you a scholarship. If you're interested, just do that. So total basis of apportionment is 10,000 kilowatt hours. And we are sharing a total cost of 10,000 on the same basis. 10,000, is it 10,000? Yes, 10,000, 10,000. So
Yeah, 10,000.
power costs per unit of kilowatt or per kilowatt hour is 1 Ghana cedi. So for the individual department, assembly, finishing, maintenance, canteen, every kilowatt hour you consume, you will be charged 1 cedi. So if you consume more kilowatt hours, you get more 1 cedis, and some of it will be bigger. So assembly has 2,750 kilowatt hours, and each of these kilowatt hours will be charged 1 Ghana cedi. So assembly will have 2,750. Finishing has a total of 4,500 kilowatt hours, and each of these hours will be charged 1 cedi of the power cost. And that is how it goes. So if you look at the analysis sheet, you will see that power.
Please, I can see what you projected, but I can't hear you when you talk.
Please come again. You can see what I'm projecting, but you cannot see what, please. What can't you see?
You said you can see. She can see you, but she can see what you've projected, but she cannot hear you.
And it is a problem of connectivity. That's very.
MTN.
Koko pe internet papa. Why? Munya pepe no.
Catch them.
Say Tigo.
You cannot see.
Let me say one thing. This way of life, virtual lessons, and so on and so forth, whether you like it or not, they have come to stay. So just recondition yourself, all right? Don't still get stuck with traditional ways of doing things. We have even been doing more traditional lectures. Ideally, we should have done more online. And once it is the new norm, so they say, you have to realign yourself. So those who don't have good internet, if you're using MTN, you can find Vodafone for the purposes of internet. MTN is bad for internet.
I say I'm using MTN and then it's still strong.
Okay.
Some of us.
And I think
Maxwell.
I didn't hear what you said. What are you guys saying? Okay, so get good internet. Sometimes it's not just the network, MTN or Vodafone. I'm not trying to market any network here. It's maybe due to the location. Because this has come to stay, you do not have any excuse. You can say, and I didn't hear what the lecturer is saying. It will still go. If you get problems, if you fail because you didn't hear, nobody will pass you. You will fail. So do the necessary thing. Don't be a person of excuses. That kind of life is for failures.
So don't mind them.
So if you have to relocate to get a good internet to do your thing, if you have to buy something, stop spending all the monies on your hairs and attires and the rest. Buy some small data. Buy some small data. They are using Infinix. Okay, so let's make progress. So for the power, this is how. And everybody is okay. 1 times, because the charge the power charge, the power cost per kilowatt hour was 1 cedi. So every kilowatt hour that you have consumed as a department, you'll be charged with 1 cedi. Assembly has consumed 2,750. You'll be charged with 1 cedi for each of those hours. And that will be 1 times 2,750, giving us 2,750. And it runs through like that for all of the departments, as you can see on the screen. All right?
So say for the power, can you also write it as in it's already has been allocated?
No, there's nothing allocation about it.
Because it still gives the same figures as in the question.
That is not the meaning of allocation. What if the power cost was 10,000? What if the total kilowatt hours was 20,000? It wouldn't have been like what you are seeing. So do it according to the procedure. If by procedure it happens to be the same figures, fine. And of course, what you are seeing here, which you think are the same figures, this one, this 2,750 is not cost, it's not Ghana cedis, it is hours. Okay. And 2,750 times 1 Ghana cedi now becomes 2,750 Ghana cedis and not hours. So we are speaking about different things here. Thank you for your question. So we are done with power. and you can check it from workings too. Machine depreciation. You can see that from the cost sheet. Machine depreciation, a total of 5,000. You can do it the way I showed you. Now you go and look at the total basis. So you're going to look at, first of all, the appropriate basis of sharing. Machine depreciation. We have machine value in the list to be the most appropriate basis now. Machine values are 45,000, 35,000, 11,000, 9,000, respectively for A, F, M, C. And a total machine value of 10,000. The cost is 5,000, I think. 5,000 over 100,000. Then that gives you machine depreciation cost per value of machine. You can also do it the long way, where you will take 4,000. We are dealing with assembly. You take 4,000 out of the total 100,000, so that will be 45,000 divided by 100,000 multiplied by the cost of 5,000 that we are sharing. But what I'm showing is straightforward. We are sharing this. Cost over the basis gives you the apportionment rate per unit of the basis, which stays the same, and then you come and multiply it by each of the values that each of the department is having. So if you come to machine depreciation, you will see this. 5,000 divided by 100,000 will give you 0.005 Ghana cedis per machine value. So every unit of machine value, you'll be charged with 0.05 of the cost of depreciation. And it follows from the discussion we have been doing. So 0.05 times 45,000 for assembly, 0.05 times 35,000 for finishing, 0.05 times 11,000 for maintenance, 0.05 times 9,000 for canteen. And then we have the totals written here. 2,250 for assembly, 1,750 for finishing, 550 for maintenance, and 450 for canteen. When we have shared the costs. This is how much each department should get using what we have determined as the fairest basis. The sum of their share should be equal to the total we shared. Indirect labor. Let's go back here. Okay, indirect labor. Sorry, let me see.
I think indirect labor is not apportioned. It's allocation.
Indirect labor, we have 1,600, 2220, blah, blah, blah. So it's an allocated. They have already split the cost. Indirect labor budgets in Ghana cedis, they have already split the cost. So we could have even brought the indirect labor after the indirect material so that we have all the allocated, but it doesn't matter. We're just showing this is allocated. 1,600, 2,220, 11,200, 1,500. So we are done with the analysis sheet. Allocation, apportionment. And this level of apportionment is primary apportionment because we have only shared the general overheads, the general production overheads to the benefiting department. And now, maintenance department, which is a service department rendering service or services to assembly and finishing as production department, is having this total overhead cost. Canteen department is also a service rendering department, rendering services to assembly and production departments, which are production departments. It has total overhead cost of 6,600. These costs for maintenance and canteen, because they are service rendering departments, need to be shared back, need to be redistributed, reapportioned back to the production department, because they render the service.
Sir, why didn't they require direct labor?
Why didn't we work on the direct labor?
Because
Yes,
we are
please.
dealing with indirect staffs. They are all overheads and direct overheads. Direct is not an overhead.
Did you hear that?
What? Yes, sir.
Minus 2.
Thank you.
Minus 2.
Thank you,
Minus 2
Chairman.
from you. Minus 2 from you. And plus 2 for him.
Then plus 2 from
Yes, I'm taking her 2 for you.
Say
Okay,
all
that's a
along.
very beautiful question. That's good. So let's make progress. So we were talking about secondary distribution. We were talking about secondary distribution, which is redistributing the service rendering department's total overhead cost to the production department. And it also works on appropriate basis. So now let's go. Okay, so I have this try. Go and do it. Resolve is not resolve. Resolve can mean in English something else. This means solve again. Resolve. Example 1 about using spreadsheets. So go and prepare this analysis sheet. You see, most of the figures are generated by formulas. So go and set up a template well thought of, where you have what you have to capture as input variables that you
Okay,
can,
sir.
yes, all those things, and go and use spreadsheets to do this, redo this. Hello? Do this. It's an assignment. I will tell you when to submit it. And that time I tell you to
Okay,
submit,
sir.
I'll be taking it that very time. So do it before it is too late. I can tell you anytime that you may not be aware.
Don't worry.
Yes, to bring
We can do it anytime.
anytime. And when I say bring it, I'm taking it because I've already given you the assignment. For now, I'm not giving any deadline. I'm taking it this. I'm only saying go and do it. At any point in time, I can call for them. There's an exercise
Okay, sir.
which students when you
Sir,
give
in our books or where?
on a sheet of,
You do spreadsheet in your book.
spreadsheet in your book. That can be magical. Can you do spreadsheets in your book?
Magic
This
woman.
girl is Wonder Woman.
Okay.
Wonder
Wonder Woman.
Woman. Wonder.
Because your mind has always been book. You even want to do spreadsheet in your book. That's just by the way.
Sir, please.
I don't know, Papa.
So let's do it, right? And keep the file on our devices and I'll request for it. Already, do you know you owe me assignment? It's the same way like this. I asked you to go and do the EOQ modeling. There are two, we saw one example and there was one example we were about to solve. And I think in the middle there was time. The assignment I gave you is to go and redo. The solutions are already in the book. The question is very simple. Go and resolve with spreadsheets. And in the same way, I can call that on this day, I am taking the files. Maybe I can give you a few hours to just copy it and give it to me. Few minutes, not hours.
Oh,
So what I'm testing is those who actually respond to assignments. There are most of us, a lot of us who, when a lecturer gives out an assignment, he can guess that, oh, this assignment is not too, maybe it's not serious. The lecturer may not take it, so he goes and sleep. So the essence of being here is not that I mark and give you your marks, you have scored this, blah, blah, blah. The main essence is
Okay, sir.
you learn to understand. Even if I test you on or I don't test you on, you understand. That's the point, right? So I'm just alerting you. You have 2 assignments to submit to me. So we are finished with allocation and primary apportionment. Now, reapportionment of service cost center overhead costs to production cost centers, also referred to as
Cost
also referred to as secondary apportionment. And like I told you, it's a similar fashion to what we have discussed already. The question will supply you with some information that you can pick as basis of redistributing or reapportioning the service cost centers. It will provide you with some basis. So let's look at the various methods that we have in doing that exercise. We can do.
Tell you back.
So you want that to close?
Yeah, sir, it's 5:30.
We are hungry.
So let me wrap up, right? Let me wrap up.
Okay.
So I'm wrapping up by just finalizing. If you don't keep quiet, I'm going to talk for the next 30 minutes. So go and read on secondary apportionment. Read on the various.
Yes, sir.
We have direct method, step down method, and reciprocal or repeated distribution. Go and read on them and solve the exercises on when and how each of these methods are applicable. Thank you very much for your attention.
Okay, sir. Thank you, sir.
So it is assumed that this chapter is dealt with.
Yeah, blue.
Okay, so this is where we bring the lecture to a close.
When I'm
Oh, will you read?
Nah, daddy.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you, sir. God bless you.
Yes, sir.
Thank you too.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Good.
When go pay the NBD?
Continue.
Yeah, Jimmy does.
Emmanuel
Governor.
design.
Oh,
Miss Likusi, stay
send
behind.
your phone. Sorry. That's in a class. No, then one man
Then say
up.
I can raise your hand. Alexander, what you raise your hand?
You mun judge me na mo the NBD.
Mami ke una pese spreadsheet o book mo no. We are passing book.
Salifu, stay behind.
I'll spread it in my book.
Mami ke o
Monkoda.